Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Captain's Log. As always, I'm Captain Beefy here with the Game Vault. And we're going to talk about 2022 today. And the games that I got and played through 2022, as well as any major DLCs and my thoughts on these games. So the first major pickup I got this year came out on, it was February 4th. Yeah, very beginning of February, and it's this game right here, Dying Light 2, Stay Human, the Techland follow-up to the very popular first Dying Light game. And I gotta tell you, it was, it's a good game. You know, it's a very good game, but it does have, it doesn't quite live up to the first Dying Light game yet. Now, the first Dying Light game was just a great concept, so much fun, so much to do, and Techland just kept giving it support, I think up to 7 years after it came out, which is astounding. A lot of games don't get that level of support for that long, you know. It's just, it doesn't happen. So this follow-up was heavily anticipated, and the story is definitely not as compelling as the first one. It does find itself a little lacking there, as you are in this city of Villador, and you're basically trying to decide how to allocate the city's various resources. You know, you've got a couple of factions you can allocate them to, one of them being the Peacekeepers, which are a semi-fascist police state, and the others being these settlers, which are kind of like socialists or commies, however you want to look at it. I always say you got to choose between the fascists or the commies in this game, which is kind of funny. But I mean, overall, the parkour definitely exceeds the last game. Graphically, I mean, look at the city; it's just gorgeous. And you get a paraglider, which is always a big plus, and especially in an open world game. Especially in an open world game where the floor is just covered with zombies that you have to either kill or avoid. The nighttime, like what made Dying Light, I think, so original and so fascinating was how terrifying Haran, that was the city in the first one, became at night. It just became this absolute horror show with these volatiles walking around, and you had to stay out of their cone of sight. And it was dark, pitch black, you know. In this new iteration here, the second one, nighttime wasn't as dark and wasn't nearly as scary. The volatiles weren't nearly as scary. But they've made some changes. You know, they've gone ahead and gave us some adjustments on making the game darker, making it a little more gritty. It was a little colorful when it first released. That was a similar complaint that a lot of people had with Diablo 3 when it came out, saying it was too colorful and pretty, you know. So Techland was listening, and they did go to work on it and give us some options, so that was great. And just recently they put out their first major DLC, Bloody Ties, which, ouch, that hurt, which basically gave us some kind of arena-type fighting thing. I haven't really explored it too much, but we'll get there. Alright, well, that was fun. But in any case, good game. Definitely not the best thing to come out in the year, but it started February off fairly strong. February was a very stacked month. So let's move on to what followed it up. 2 weeks after Dying Light 2 Stay Human came out, we had another second outing in a franchise get released, and that was Horizon Forbidden West, the eagerly awaited sequel to the Horizon Zero Dawn game. Now, Guerrilla Games put out a banger, and this is one of the games that's a contender for Game of the Year. Unfortunately, it'll probably not win it, but let me tell you, it should win some stuff. This is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. The attention to detail is astounding, and it's just gorgeous. The color palettes, you know, it's set in a post-apocalyptic future, 1,000 years after the fall of humanity, and it continues the story of our protagonist, Aloy, who, as you can see now, can fly on a machine. She also has a hang glider, just like our buddy did in Dying Light 2. That seems to be a thing. But in any case, yeah, definitely one of the best and most beautiful games I've seen ever. I mean, just look at these vibrant colors. It's astounding. So, some of the, it took the formula from Horizon Zero Dawn, and it improved upon it in many ways. The combat, I think, is a lot more exciting. There's a wider variety of weapons and ammunition this time around. You got more tricks up your sleeve with like a flying mount like this. And let's see. Yeah, there's our little glider, see?
Shale said the hunting party was a house near here. Best place to start looking for the hunter's seed pouches.
So yeah, you got some improvements on combat that were huge. You got a wider variety of machines. A lot of machines from the first game are returned and tweaked a little bit cooler than they used to be. You have stealth.
Must be one of the hunters.
A lot of fun stuff. A couple caveats though, and you're going to hear this again later on in this show. One of the things I didn't like is that Aloy has a tendency to talk too much while you're playing, and it's a lot of times in referring to like solving puzzles and all that. Now, she's not as bad as other games have been with that, but it still can be a little frustrating when you're trying to work something out and then she tells you, oh, why don't you try jumping up on that wall over there, or maybe I should jump up that wall over there, or maybe I should go over here, or that sort of thing. So that's a little bit annoying. Again, it's a minor thing. Definitely not a game breaker by any stretch of the imagination. And the only other issue I really had with the game is the story, while good, is not nearly as compelling as the story behind Zero Dawn. Zero Dawn had this fascinating story that just captured you, and it kept your attention. The Forbidden West, while it has an interesting story and all, and some returning characters that are great to see, it just doesn't hold a candle to the original one. Now, I know we've got a VR game coming out in 2023, I think in February 2023 with the release of the PlayStation VR headset, so I'm looking forward to that and seeing how that fits in with the mythos here. Is it going to tie into Aloy? Is it going to continue her story? Is it going to be completely unrelated? I'm not really sure as of yet, but it'll be fun to see what that brings to the table. But yeah, just look at this detail. You got different tribes of people in different regions. Each one has a unique look as far as how they dress, the construction of their buildings, and their quote-unquote technology. It's just amazing. The one thing I didn't like is, while the voice acting is great for the most part, the accents are kind of funny. You figure, and the diversity of the way people look is kind of funny. Because you figure if humanity got wiped out and there was only a fraction of humanity left, then people who live in one area would develop a certain homogenized look to them due to breeding over 1,000 years. That's generations of breeding there, right? So all these different races and all that would blend together. You wouldn't have people that look so much like Aloy or Silence or any of the other characters. You got Asian characters, you got obvious Hispanic characters and all that. And while I'm not dunking on diversity, I think for an apocalyptic future like that, it would have been more interesting to have these tribes kind of developed their own look, their own language, their own method of speaking, instead of you hear this kind of accent and that kind of accent, and it can be kind of funny sometimes, like if you think about it like that. So yeah, definitely a beautiful game, definitely one of my favorites from the year. Transmog system, you can color your armor. They've done some great updates to it that have only made the game better. Hoping for some DLC, because the way the game ends, it lends itself to either a sequel or a DLC that will resolve the way it ends. Hopefully it's a DLC. I'd like to see that rather than have to wait another 5 to 7 years for a sequel. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Horizon Forbidden West. Let's move on. So, 7 days after Horizon Forbidden West came out, From Software unleashed the behemoth named Elden Ring on the gaming community, and the internet exploded. What do I mean by that? Oh my god. The arguments I saw over the difficulty curve of the game, and just, you know, graphically how awful it was compared to other games, and and to this day, now the latest is a lack of narrative that the game has. And while anybody can make any of these arguments, one thing people cannot argue against is the impact this game had on gaming in general. Now, I was never a From Software fan. I didn't play Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, any of those games. This is my first exposure to a From Software game. And I got to tell you, it was humbling, to say the least. Did I like it? Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. At first, it was so frustrating. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my god, I don't know if I can play this game. I'm 52 years old. I'm not your average young gamer. I don't have the reflexes I had 20, 30 years ago. So, it took some doing to get the hang of things and learn how to parry, dodge, and block, and all these special moves. And it's still, the game was just a brutal challenge. Boss after boss after boss. Even low-level creatures in the beginning were just awful. Then it clicked one day that you have to just kind of run past things, and you can't fight everything you come across. And when you get what is it? It's not souls in this game. It's oh geez, I haven't played it in a while. But you get your stuff you trade in. I'll tell you here in a second. Jeez, that's embarrassing. Oh, where are the sisters? Aren't they in here? Yeah, here they are. So yeah, we talked to the sisters, and wow, runes. We collect runes. My bad. Okay, so in any case, you just had to learn that when you collected runes, you went and you spent them immediately. Until you got good enough that you could build up a little confidence to save up for stuff, but it would be so frustrating to just, build up some runes, get killed, go to get your runes, get killed on the way to get your runes, and then they're all gone, and you're just so pissed. I never finished the game, unfortunately, and I was not a day one player of this. I didn't pick it up till a couple weeks after it came out, and the main reason I picked it up was just because of all the controversy around it. I said, you know what, I got to experience this game for myself. I will go back and finish the game now. As you can see, I've gotten along fairly decently in it, but I still got quite a ways to go. I did hit a wall, and other things were going on, other games, and it was too much to keep up with, and the game actually began to feel a little bit like a chore for me. But I think once I clear my plate a little bit and I can focus on this game again, I will go through and finish it, because I definitely want to try it out on New Game Plus to see what kind of experience that is. So those are the 3 games I picked up in February. February was a banging month. There were other games that came out at that time that were great. I think the PS5 version of Cyberpunk came out that month too, if I'm not mistaken. Well, let's move on to March and see what happened then. So March came around, and immediately in March 4th, Gran Turismo 7 was released. Polyphony, I think, is the name of the developer. And this is that driving simulator series that's been around since, I think, PlayStation 2. I've played every one of these. I love the Gran Turismo series. I did skip the sport one because that was more arcadey than the regular game. I liked the regular classic Gran Turismo games. The building of the cars, the modifications of them, just the racing, and how much fun it was to do these different races. was always fantastic. Building up money so you can get that next vehicle and, just to move on. And oh my God, it was so much fun. Always so much fun. So this one came out and I highly anticipated. I really wanted a piece of this game. Couldn't wait for it. And I got it. And it was fun. I had a good time with it in the beginning. There's a lot of cars in the game, a lot of different ways to get them as far as different places you could buy them. Some are used, some are new. Some of these legendary cars that you're very limited on which ones you can get at what time. So it was kind of crazy how it was all structured, and you had to grind out a lot of money to get the cars that you wanted. As you could see, I don't have a lot of them. Um, and shortly after release, like maybe a month or so, they changed the payout on a lot of races. I don't remember if it was across the board or what, but making the game even more grindy than it was. And that really turned off a lot of players. They were not happy with that. So there was a big backlash online. I don't remember if anything was adjusted to it or if they changed anything on that. To be honest, I couldn't tell you. But there's a beauty. But look at the detail in the cars. They're gorgeous. It was just gorgeous. So anyway, it was around that time that I kind of temporarily gave up on the game. And honestly, I haven't been back. It just... That left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but by then I had moved on to some other games and all that. And I'm wondering now, have I moved beyond the racing game in general? Is this something that I just don't find as interesting as I used to? I mean, I used to love it. I played the hell out of all those previous versions of the game, and there's nothing more fun than making that money, buying that next car, going through that next circuit, opening up that next set of tracks, and just fighting for first place and souping up that car, winning a new car, fixing that one up, and it was just so much fun. And something just didn't sit well with me this time out, and it wasn't as fun as it used to be. And that's a real shame, because this is a franchise that I love, and it's no fault of their own. As you can see, the vehicles are gorgeous, everything looks beautiful. They even have the stars in the right place in the sky at nighttime. So if you're racing in the United States or Europe or whatever, the stars are going to be what the stars are in that part of the world. That is an attention to detail that you don't see very often. And again, I love the franchise. I've always loved the franchise. I do plan on hopping back in again. Looks like I'm going to have to give this car a little more horses, but in any case, I will be hopping back in to play again. And, one of these days, it's probably something when I get my second drive installed in my PS5, I'll probably put this one in there as just to always have it, so I could just hop on and do a race here and there and have a little fun, work on a car, tinker around when I got nothing else going on. But as far as holding my attention, the way the cafe worked, as far as opening up new races and winning new cars and all that, it felt a little clunky. The menus are very old school style, very old school Gran Turismo style, and for nostalgia purposes, that's wonderful. I think it's great. If you grew up with those games, you'll appreciate that. But as games have evolved, so have gamers, myself included, and the nostalgia wore off quickly, and they began to feel a little bit clunky, so that was a shame. But that's not all that happened in March. So shortly after Gran Turismo was released, in fact, 6 days later, Ubisoft put out an expansion for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Not just a small DLC by any stretch of the imagination. This is a massive DLC, and it had a pretty hefty price tag to go along with it. So that raised the ire of a lot of fans. It basically continues the story of Javi, or Odin if you prefer, as he travels now to Schvartalheim to deal with the potential of Ragnarok happening. Oof, that was brutal. In any case, it brought us some new enemies, new methods of playing the game a little bit, with some cool new options like turning into a raven, you know, by filling up your magic, as you can see on the bottom right hand side there. You know, a lot of new cool gameplay features, a humongous new map, and tons of fun. I was already playing Valhalla. I was loving it. I had played through Asgard. I had played through Jotunheim. I had done the expansion in France, the expansion in Ireland, the expansion in the Americas, the expansion in where was it, Scotland? You know, the Isle of Skye. So this just gave me more of what I loved, and it wasn't the last expansion to be released in 2023. In fact, one more has already been released, and another one is coming up in a few short weeks. So this has been a game that has had a lot of support since its release. And I know it's highly divisive. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't like this whole model for these Ubisoft games, like the Assassin's Creed games and the Far Cry games. It causes a lot of divisiveness among the community, but I like the open world games. I have a lot of fun with them. Are they bloated? Yeah, they're a little bloated for sure. There's definitely a lot of stuff to collect, and the map can get cluttered with icons, and your HUD can get cluttered with icons and all that, depending on what's going on. So I get it, but this is the kind of game that I just absolutely love. Being able to, you know, jump back in. I haven't played for a while, but just being able to jump back into Ivor, or in this case Javi's character, you know, they're one and the same basically, and go out there and just kick some butt for a little while is always just so much fun. And absolutely loved it. But that's not all 22 had to offer. All right, well, we got to talk about the surprise indie hit that came out in July, because that's the next time I got a new game. That was July 19th, and that is the cat simulator, as people like to call it, Stray. Stray is not my normal type of game. I'll tell you that straight up off the bat. I was never a big cat person. I wasn't enamored by, like, oh, I get to play as a cat and all that kind of nonsense that a lot of people had. But the more I saw about the game, the more interesting it became to me. I was like, wow, this is kind of a cool concept. You're a cat. It's not combat based. It's all puzzle solving and that sort of thing. And it just looked like so much fun that I just couldn't wait to try it out. So I downloaded it. I ended up not buying this one. It was part of the PlayStation Plus package by then. PlayStation had upgraded their monthly service, and I had the premium level. I'd upgraded to premium for the balance of my year that I had already started, you know, and I said, well, I'll give this a try. So I downloaded it, and I finished it in a single night. It's not a long game by any stretch of the imagination. It does have some harrowing combat-like experiences, even though there's no real combat in it. You're not clawing, fighting, biting, or anything like that. You're basically running and using that little guy right there and a light to fight off your enemies. It's mainly about puzzle solving and solving the mystery of what happened in this city and trying to get your little cat back home to his family. And, you know, very unique idea, lots of fun, absolutely loved it. Would highly recommend it to anyone who gets an opportunity to play it. If you have the PlayStation, I think it's the top tier one, you need to play this one for free. It was out on day one, and it was just, God, it was fun. Well, let's move on from here. Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, for our next game, we're going to jump ahead to November 9th, where one of my most highly anticipated games released from Santa Monica Studios, and that, of course, is God of War Ragnarok. This game is a big contender for Game of the Year, and after playing through about 12 hours of it or so far, I can see why. It is a continuation from the 2018 highly acclaimed reboot of the franchise. It features an amazing story, great characters. The voice acting is superb, absolutely superb. And the story is just, it's a beautiful story. It takes this new version of Kratos it brings to us. If you all remember the old games where Kratos was kind of like just this killing machine, and I know this is a bad example right now, him being not a killing machine, he still is, but he's got nuance now. He's got a son. There's Atreus right there helping him out. And his primary goal in this game is to keep his son safe as Ragnarok looms and can potentially destroy everything that they have, their home, their lives, everything. So it's definitely quite the game. It's getting a lot of criticism for being a movie and, you know, all that from your typical console warriors on the other side of the spectrum, but let me tell you, it's very cinematic, yes. Definitely very cinematic. But that only adds to the story. You end up with some great moments, some great gameplay, awesome fighting. The
Father of all, we swung from the tree. Wisdom
Okay.
gained father, servitude gained we.
So anyway, the gameplay has been expanded as far as the combat system. It's only gotten better, more moves. It's got a great and simple progression system as far as skills, armor, and weapons goes. And it kind of keeps you locked in at a certain level until you advance, so you can't sit there and farm materials like you can in a lot of games just to upgrade your equipment and become overpowered early. You grow with the game. You grow as you progress, and it keeps you on a fairly even level with the enemies that you're facing. Now, there are things you can do to build up your skills and whatnot, but
I can forge some new stuff. Seems like you might need the help.
and you still have Brock, who's still kind of ornery and a little crass. But a couple of my criticisms for the game, and they're very, very minor. One of them is much like I talked about with Horizon Forbidden West, is your little son here and Mimir hanging on your belt are very quick to offer you solutions to puzzles when you are in an area that requires you to open a Nornir chest or to somehow get up to a high point, and you know it's going to require some thought and some puzzle solving. You might have to destroy something, you may have to jump a certain way, whatever. I mean, but they're quick to tell you, like, hey, what if we go over there, or what if you destroy that, or what if you do this? And that could be a little frustrating. Hopefully Santa Monica addresses that. That's my biggest beef with it. I've seen a lot of people online talking about the puzzles and how frustrating those are. I like the puzzles. I like the blend of, you know, action, going out there, killing a whole bunch of stuff and fighting like crazy. And then you get a little respite, you find a new area, and you've got to solve a puzzle. So it works your brain and your muscle memory, which is a great combination. And I couldn't recommend this game more. So this game,
Need anything, boys?
Elden Ring, and Horizon Forbidden West have all been nominated for Game of the Year, you know, out of all these games that I have gone over today, and all of them are very deserving of it. And in my thoughts, my personal Game of the Year, even though I'm not done with it yet, you're looking at it right now, is God of War Ragnarok. It's just so good, so much fun, and absolutely love it. I can play this game for hours and hours and hours. Realistically, though, I think it's going to go to Elden Ring for a couple reasons. One of them, Elden Ring just took the industry by storm. It was a multi-platform release, unlike God of War Ragnarok, which is a Sony exclusive. And it took that From Software game, that game style that you saw in Demon's Souls and Bloodborne and so forth, and Dark Souls, and it put it in an open world setting that just, like I said, it totally broke the internet for a few days there when it first came out, and then it's still to this day a much discussed and argued over game. So that's definitely the one I believe is going to take home Game of the Year. Now let's look ahead for the rest of 2022 and into the early part of 2023, what I've got lined up. Callisto Protocol coming out on December 2nd. Absolutely looking forward to that game. And then a month later, a little over a month later, January 27th, the Dead Space remake, which I cannot wait for. I've been praying for a Dead Space remake for years now. That's a game that has definitely lost its luster, especially with that third iteration of the game, and it kind of killed the franchise for a while. But with this recent trend in remakes, I knew it was only a matter of time, and I will not be disappointed, I'm sure. So can't wait for that. February comes out, and yeah, I think I'm going to commit to Hogwarts Legacy. That's it's a game I wasn't very much interested in because I'm not a big fan of Harry Potter. But just the more gameplay I see on it, I think it's going to be a fun, interesting, and unique open world experience. So for that, it's definitely worth giving a try. In March, of course, on the 24th of March, you got Resident Evil 4 coming out, the latest remake. Hopefully it lives up to the recent ones like 2 and, you know, to a lesser extent 3, and continues with that trend of updating these games for modern times with, you know, better graphics and just totally rebuilding them. I mean, the last 2 were great. April, we got Dead Island 2. Looking forward to that one. Dead Island 1 and was it Riptide? They were a lot of fun, goofy games, but, you know, a definite pleasure to play. And they kind of take that whole zombie thing and just give it this over-the-top goofiness that is so much fun. So, what do you think of my games for 2022? Any of them any of them that you played that you particularly loved, hated, think are overrated, underrated? Leave it down in the comments down below and tell me what I missed as far as gems. I know I missed some interesting and controversial games like Gotham Knights, The Last of Us Part 1, the remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it. That was another game that almost broke the internet. And of course, a few others. In any case, thanks for joining me. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault, and I appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I drop videos daily, and I do a Captain's Log weekly. Leave a comment and like on the video down below, and share us on social media. The exposure is greatly appreciated. I'm around the 350 some odd mark, and I'm looking to hit 500 by the end of the year. Any help would be appreciated. Until next time, peace.